Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
So here we go again. Welcome to the Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports in association with McBookie. We're back after the international break, refreshed of sorts, ready to go again for the run into the campaign, which I think I can officially say is the run in now. Just 7 games to go. And Alan and Michael, fresh back from a journey to the Highlands where they took in an important game. Wasn't all action again for you two. We'll come to that. But Alan, first of all, most importantly, did you get home okay? I know you worry about those roads on the way back down.
It took a little bit of time, not going to lie. And when you go to the overtaking lanes or whatever in the A9 and then a bus pulls out in front of you and blocks all and you've been waiting for about 15 mile, then you realise that the pain just sets in. But look, out with that, good day.
At least it was beautiful weather up north, Michael, I saw.
Wonderful. Lovely. Yep. Alan needs to spend a bit more time up north instead of just try to get away as quickly as you can. You need to go and savour.
I was trying to beat the traffic.
Michael, you make a kind of weekend trip out of these things, don't you?
I just got back an hour ago.
That's because the roads.
But as we said, Michael, just before we went live, for Al to go to Edinburgh, it's like a holiday for him. It's a big trip. Doesn't like going too far from home.
Darryl, can't wait for next week. Brilliant game on offer. Through in Edinburgh, perfect.
Perfect. And by the way, what a game that is. We'll come back to that later on. It means so much now, the game live in Premier Sports next weekend. But Alan, what about the action yesterday? Should we just get that done with then? Because it wasn't exactly, if I say all action, was it? I mean, we'll show people the goal. And I know there was a couple more chances. But in the end, what it was a priceless 3 points for Dundee United.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought that they had to bounce back after the Derby defeat. And when you think of the having to wait for 2 weeks and it going over in your mind as a player, as a manager, it can be difficult. But the most important thing was 3 points. And we spoke to Jim Goodwin after about it. And that's exactly what he said. It was about getting 3 points and keeping up pace at the top end of the league. So, yeah, not a lot of quality, some half-decent efforts. I thought Ross County they were trying not to lose the game. The best opportunities they had were like throw-ins and set plays and things like that. Exactly. But I think that Dundee United deserved it, and it was a decent goal. There was a warning sign just before it. It was like a carbon copy, and then Graham gets the goal. But yeah, this is the one we're just about to see. It's a lovely whipped-in ball, and he's just too strong, too physical. Really good header. But like I said, the warning sign was there. The exact same corner came in from the same side, and they just got away with it. But overall, I thought Dundee United deserved the win.
We've got a lot of threats from set pieces, Michael. Balls into the box, Dundee United.
Yeah, I mean, they have. But, I mean, Ross County are pretty similar in terms of, they've had plenty of physicality, lots of, big presences in the box. But as Alan was talking about there, that was pretty much it in regards to the threat from Ross County. And for Dundee United, I mean, there wasn't a great deal either, but they get the win. And as you already heard there, when you're involved in a game that is like that, the result is all that really matters, to come out with a positive one. And it means, for Dundee United, that game was really pivotal, because had they lost it, Ross County then are level on points with St Mirren and Motherwell. And then obviously they're only 3 points behind Dundee United with this game next week against Hearts. So they've put to bed pretty much, they're secure in the top 6. They're now able to genuinely look at third spot again and say, we can challenge for third. Had they not got the 3 points, it changes everything big time. So a huge victory for them.
And a clean sheet important as well.
Yeah.
Always, Alan, but when you've got defenders out injured like United have, even better.
Course. Yeah, I mean, Chevy coming back in and playing centre half's not ideal. He's played in a number of positions, and I thought he'd done all right because he was up against people that were going to test him, and it looked the way they'd set up with the attackers that they had on the pitch that it was going to be a difficult afternoon. But look, they dealt with it, and as Michael said there, it was just important that they got the 3 points with the huge game that's coming up. So, yeah, decent result for them.
And their fans, Michael, whether we like it or not, I mean, it would have been a horrible international break for the Dundee United fans after the derby. We had Tony Docherty on. For all we said, it was positive about Dundee. Lots of negatives from the Dundee United side of things. So just to get that out of the mind now and to move forward, like you say, and to look up, psychologically really important.
I mean, it's the be all and end all of that Derby defeat was that they get the 3 points, and we've already just mentioned here everything that flows from that as well. So, yeah, and you've got a trip up north, you win the game, all of a sudden everyone's positive. You're going back down the road happy. You're pulling out in front of Alan on the A9 and blocking his.
I think they meant it. I think they've probably seen me and went, he's still getting by.
It just makes it a little bit sweeter.
I wasn't actually dancing, Darryl. We were out of vision. Michael
I know.
Carried it on.
I could picture it, Al, because I've seen it before, remember. I could picture it. And then when Michael and Rory said, well, we can see you, I thought, it's surely not happened. I know there probably wasn't that many fans in one of the corners, but you can't get away with that.
I'm not that daft, Darryl. I'm not that stupid.
No, quite right, because somebody would have had the video phone out, and that somebody would have been Michael Stewart, guaranteed. It would have been all over social media right off the back of it. Just briefly on Ross County, I think they've actually had a really good season, Michael, haven't they, overall? But now top six, a very distant hope, and they've just got to be careful that they don't, slip back into a rut, and then other teams can maybe pull them back into a race they don't want to be involved in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, the long and short of it for them is that the last 2 seasons have been in 11th spot in the relegation playoff.
Yeah,
they look like they will steer clear of that this season, but you're right. They need to pick up some more results to make sure of that. But it's a tough one. I mean, watching that game, there wasn't many positives for Ross County to come away from it. The performance wasn't great. They've only scored 31 league goals in 31 games now. So I think that tells you where there is an issue in actually creating, chances and taking them. So it's pretty efficient when they've only scored 31 goals to have been knocking on the door of the top six. Yes, it looks like it's too much for them now, but with everything that goes on at Ross County, the top flight is the aim, securing that status, and on the whole, you've got to say Don Cowie's done a pretty impressive job so far of giving themselves an opportunity to look towards next season as a Premiership side again.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Al, let's move on to some of the other games that were obviously really significant. It feels like a lot of them were, just about all of them were at the weekend. But Hibs, in league terms, they just keep going. This was a really comfortable victory against St Johnstone, who had so much to play for as well. So to go and win in the manner that they won, it just shows you again the vein of form that Hibs are in.
Yeah, well, it's 15 games now in the league unbeaten, which is quite incredible.
In the league, yeah.
And exactly, and again, that's what when you listen to David Gray and what he's talking about, and he always refers back to where they were in December. Like, we're talking about a team that were bottom of the league to where they are at this moment in time. It's an incredible turnaround. And yeah, I thought they played really well. They're always a constant threat going forward. But look, for as good as they were, I think from a St Johnstone point of view, if you defend like that, and we've said it on multiple occasions, I mean, even the first goal, you win the ball back, you're in decent shape, you then overplayed and give it away. I mean, here they actually won the ball back, they give it away. Hoylett does ever so well. Need to show him down the line. You can't, right? Okay, wonderful finish. But the second one for me sums them up. Yeah, I get it under the manager. Sprangler, look, he's so slow to react. Hoylett again does really well. Boyle, decent finish. Keeper could have done a little bit better, but I just feel like this is St Johnstone all over. Like, defensively, yes, they want to play from the back, but at the right times, and
there's
they just
don't
be a
seem to do it, doesn't there, Al?
Absolutely.
Because you're in a relegation fight here, and I know that they've improved
Darryl,
going forward under Valakari, but come on.
But see the thing under Valakari, right? They have possession, but they don't do anything really with it. That's the big problem, and they're putting themselves under pressure, and this surely highlights it for them. You can't do that. The second goal for me is just like it's schoolboy stuff, and it's happened to them before. This isn't the first time. No. For that example, we've showed it before. So when you play that way, you're going to be punished, especially with a Hibs team that are doing well.
Yeah, and just on St Johnstone, Michael, I mean, because we're obviously discussing them at the moment, because we'll come back to Hibs quite clearly. I mean, if you're going to do that, pick your moment, if you like, but also pick your team, pick your opposition. Hibs have been so good at doing that against many teams in recent times. We saw them do it against Celtic recently too. If you play out, Hibs can catch you out, and that's what's happened.
Yeah, well, not to disagree with that, but see the way that they're actually just playing there. Great, brilliant. It's admirable, and applaud them for it. But if you're doing it, you need to do it properly. And Sprangler, the captain, as I was touching on there, it's schoolboy stuff, and it's not the first time. You know, it's basic midfield play. Like, if you're coming and taking that ball, you need to know what's around you, and you need to know where you're passing. You know, when you're playing in the middle of the park like that, and look, there's a lot of the players talk highly of the manager Valacari in terms of what he's looking to do. You need to have a vision so you can almost play with your eyes shut. You're taking the ball in the middle there. If I'm taking the ball in the middle of the park and I'm on the half turn, I know I can bounce it out to a fullback like to Al. I know the general position that he's in. I'm not having to think. So it's one touch, bang, or you can play it first time. Or if you're taking it on the half turn, he surely has seen the Hibs player who's actually then come on his shoulder to win the ball back. If you know he's coming, you get your body across so that either it's a free kick or you're keeping possession. These are basic things, especially in that middle of the park where you've got to be so careful because you know you lose possession, you're wide open. You're on, you know, your
and
team.
Hibs have got players to exploit you. Guys like Junior Hoylett and Martin Boyle, they've got these kind of maverick players who at any moment can do something special.
It's naive. It's naive, Daryl. You know?
That's exactly what it is.
Like, I applaud them for I want to see teams playing like that. But you have to have an understanding of you're playing like that, you're still secure, and you're understanding the importance of you do not lose that ball in the middle of the park. It's the captain as well. You've got it, and ultimately that's going to be their downfall, St Johnstone, because they're too easy to play against. And I was touching on this other thing. You look at the penalty kick, the defending is so lazy. You know, you look at it and you go to yourself, that's surely not a free kick. It's not a penalty. Surely.
The first viewing, you wonder, don't you?
Oh my God, he's dangled a toe in. And you're like, that's not good enough. You know, simple basics like that. If you can't do that properly, then you're always running the risk of losing goals and losing games of football.
Al, Hibs are looking really good for third spot, aren't they, on this league unbeaten
Absolutely.
run? They don't look as if they're going to drop too many points. They've got Rangers next weekend, I believe. So that's a real big contest, important game for them.
Well, that could be it. That could end up anything the way Rangers are at this moment in time. Jekyll and Hyde. But I mean, they're just, the confidence must be flowing through all them. I mean, you can just tell with the manager, but he doesn't get too ahead of himself, which I quite like. He's open, he's honest, he speaks about everything, where they were to where they're at this moment in time. But the players have just totally bought in. They're all coming together. And like you say, you've got guys like Boyle, these kind of players that can make something happen out of nothing, Hoylett, and they're all playing at a decent level. So I think at this moment in time, yes, they'll get Rangers next, but I think they can really go and push on and really try and secure that spot.
And Martin, go on, Michael.
I was just going to say, when you look at that performance and result on Saturday for Hibs, the biggest accolade that I can give them is that it was run of the mill. They were comfortable, and they were never in doubt, and they just basically brushed the team aside, and they've won 3-0 at home. And you know, that's, I think, an indication of where they've come from, because you know they had started a wee mini revival, and I don't know if you remember the game, but they played Ross County at home, and they were 1-0 down going into half time, and they scored a scrappy, rubbish goal and got 1-1 at half time. And I swear to God, the crowd were going to bring the roof down in terms of booing had they gone in 1-0 down, because it was a terrible performance, right? And this is no disrespect to Ross County, but the point being, this was a side at that time who hadn't won away from home in something like 14 months, Ross County. And they were 1-0 down going into half-time. They managed to get 1-1. Now, fast forward to, you know, this current, you know, present day, and they've just swatted St Johnstone aside 3-0, comfortable, no doubt about it. They are in a rhythm. They've got a shape that works for them. They're missing some players, but they've now got that continuity in the team. That a couple of players out, not a problem. Few players have slotted in, and they've all raised their level. And I've said this on a number of occasions. The manager can't receive enough credit, because he could so easily have lost the plot with that squad, because I think there's quite a few of them now who are actually playing above themselves. Yeah. And that's down to the manager.
And also, like, just, you know, if they can somehow get that third place, Alan, or certainly get European qualification, it would change so much for the planning in the summer. And maybe we'll get Michael. I know we've got something in the works. We're going to try and get someone high up in the Hibs board to come on in future weeks to talk to us about plans and what they're going to do moving ahead. But, you know, a few weeks ago we were talking and you would wonder about guys like Triantis, you know, on loan. Can they get him back? Martin Boyle, the option they've got to pick up. You know, does Martin Boyle want to stay with Hibs? You know, if they get into European football guaranteed, it probably changes the budget a bit. And the intentions of some of those players, you'd imagine a lot more now would be desperate to stay on and give this another go.
Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely changes the vision for the team moving forward from where they were. I mean, you go back to that Dundee game that we were at and how bad it was when Michael talks about something could have just exploded. That was the moment for me. But from there to where we are right now, everything's changed. Why wouldn't you want to be part of something? David Gray's doing really well. He speaks about even his tactics at the weekend. They knew watching St Johnstone how they wanted to play. We wanted to set up traps. He knows what he's talking about. And I just think moving forward, that's going to attract probably better players. So he'll know where he needs to fix. I know Michael spoke about the defence and different things, so he'll know where he needs to put new bodies in. But yeah, I think it totally changes if they can get European football.
And they've got the tie-in with Bournemouth as well, which you would imagine also means they're going to have a great scouting network and great possibilities moving forward. Just briefly then, because we need to move on, Michael, but on Martin Boyle, fairly sure I read that Hibs actually own the option. If they want to take up the option to extend with him, you know, he's had his injury problems in the past and he's playing some great stuff right now. He's continuing to make the long journeys, international football. He's trying to fit it all in. I mean, do you think it would be safe to move forward with him, given the amount of playing time, the amount of the questions he must ask of his own body with injury record? Do you think, regardless of that, you've got to keep him if you can?
Well, it's now you're right in saying that. You know, I've read also that they have an option to trigger an extension here, which is, you know, I wasn't aware of that before when we've spoken about this. So that does change things slightly because you're talking about the potential to, you know, extend them by a year. I'm presuming it's not as if it's
a year, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you're organising a new 2-3 year contract. So to me, that does change things from the perspective of Hibs. That you know, I would be more inclined to say, well, yeah, we will trigger that option because it's a year. You're not committing to an extra 3 years, for example, where he's at that age and there would be, you know, a big expense because he's probably one of the top earners at the club. I would definitely be looking at the option of a year and thinking, yeah, we do want that because you look at what he's done this season. He's got himself fit.
Yeah,
he's been he's got himself back into the position of where he is a real talisman for the team. Jamie McGrath's coming in the summer as well.
Yeah, there's Graham Gibbs' point there. Is McGrath not a Boyle replacement? You can have them both if you're in Europe, can't you? All these extra games.
And they're not
different.
And exactly, they are different players. They're different players. I would think that you look at Jamie McGrath. He's not got the pace of a Martin Boyle. He's a creator. You know, somebody
that definitely adds.
He definitely
adds quality.
Definitely. So, you know, and I've said this before about Jamie McGrath. That to me is an indication of the people who are making signings now are making sensible signings. It's not to say it's a guarantee that Jamie McGrath is going to work, but you look at him and you look at what he's done, and you say he's a player. He's a good player, a sensible signing. That for me, when you're looking at it from a Hibs perspective, that should get people excited. So, answer your question about Hibs in Europe. Of course, it makes them a more attractive proposition, which then potentially looks a rung above what they're trying to bring in.
Yeah,
and it raises the appeal of the club as a whole, no doubt.
It does. And McGrath and Boyle, two guys, you keep them fit, excellent players for the football club, that's for sure. Right, so Hibs obviously in this long unbeaten run, looking very good for third place at the moment, Alan, but Aberdeen have picked up, scored 4 at the weekend. Michael's favourite striker, Kevin Nisbet. As soon as Michael said he can't score, he can't stop scoring. But anyway, listen, we're all happy.
I never said
that. I know, I was watching, don't you worry. And by the way, we're all pleased to see him scoring again for the national team.
I'm delighted you've not called him Rabsy Nesbitt this week.
I was waiting for that.
And the Nisbets, I thought, I need to get this right here. I'm sure when I used to be on the TV, I used to get it right. So I can still do it now. Anyway, listen, he got a couple. Aberdeen scored 4 against a Motherwell team who'd had a bit of a resurgence under Michael Wimmer. So it's a good scoreline for the Dons, Al.
Yeah, I think it is. I think Motherwell under Michael Wimmer has done really well. And where I've seen it, kind of come to fruition a lot was the game at Ibrox and how well they played there. So like, you know what you're up against. You can see the patterns of playing, what they're trying to do. So I think it shows a real good result from Aberdeen, and I think they have slightly turned a corner. I thought it was a good performance, scoring the 4 goals, and even the character of them. They go 1-0 down very early, and it could be quite easy that you kind of crumble, especially when they were in that kind of poor run of form. But to kind of pick back up and show that willingness to go forward and create and make things happen. I mean, this is really early on. I mean, I think Slattery's been excellent since he's come back from his injury. So he's done really well there to go on the end of it. But Aberdeen just pressed forward, and I thought there was a couple of really good goals. Clarkson's was a really good goal. Even that, Dorrington, I think the little layoff there in the finish, really cultured from a centre half, to be fair. This is a tackle, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, we'll come back to that in detail in a little bit later on, I guess, a bit of time, because I think we need to discuss that. And we're about to see the rest of the highlights. So Michael, just first of all on the Dons, obviously Papagay is back into the team starting. Excuse me. On the Dons, Michael, how impressed have you been with the way they've seemingly sort of turned this around at the moment?
They were good on Saturday, but this was a defining game for me, because had they not, got the victory, I think what you would regard as turning it around is a little bit of, this game changes the dynamic of all that. This game doesn't happen, then I'm not really convinced that they have turned it round.
No, I'm with you, but I just mean it was looking bleak for a while.
Oh, it
all
was.
Of a sudden now we're thinking, why not?
Exactly, but what I'm meaning is,
Rabsy strike.
On the back of that, the confidence is flowing again for Aberdeen. Saturday was a really good performance. It had a bit of everything. The second half performance from Motherwell was better, but Aberdeen, withstood that bit of pressure, and then they banged in more goals and got themselves, further ahead. So I think for Jimmy Tilleen coming away for that game, he'll be feeling really positive. Kevin Nisbet scoring goals again, looks really confident, which, again, that's the game that really hammers home the point for me, because previously it's in its infancy. Last game against St Johnstone, 0-0. That's where things are then teetering on the edge. They could go one way or the other again. But Saturday, they hammered home the narrative and the perception of things are moving forward again for Aberdeen, and they are right in the hunt for third spot. I think it's now very difficult to definitively say who's going to finish third, which makes it exciting. It genuinely does. So that was very good from Aberdeen and a real confidence booster. I thought their overall performance was good, and there are a lot to look forward to in the last run of games now.
And as we've said, look, it wasn't all bad for Motherwell, by the way. At 2-1 down, they had opportunities to get level, maybe even go ahead in the game. Some good opportunities, some positive signs still under Michael Wimmer. I know he said they kind of gave up a bit late on, which obviously is not a great thing to hear from your manager. But there's plenty to like about Motherwell. And I guess from the Motherwell's fans' point of view, Alan, they'll look at that challenge by Papagay and think, well, if that's red, the whole game turns. How did you see it?
Well, I've done it a million times when I was playing that way. Somebody knocks you over and your instant red mist comes down and you're just looking for the next person to tackle. That's what it seemed like. I thought it was a little bit naughty. When I first seen it, I was thinking, this could go either way. And I think maybe if the ref did give it, I don't think they would have overturned it. But for me, it's a yellow card.
Michael?
I would definitely agree. Had the red card been shown, there's no way it's getting overturned. No chance it's getting overturned. I think it's borderline, verging more towards a red than a yellow, because of where he catches him. I know there's not a great deal of force because he's almost static as he sort of falls into it, but still, where he catches him, I think it's
doesn't look good, does it?
Is that red mist,
in the world, that's a red card.
It's that red mist that comes down. Remember, just before he gets knocked over, I think, and then he just quickly jumps up and he gets tackled. He quickly jumps up. And then he just goes for it, and that's when you make big mistakes. So, look, I'm saying yellow, but I do agree with what Michael's saying. Like, there was enough. If it was given a red, it's not getting overturned.
And it's the fine lines, isn't it? That's the margin. That can turn what we're talking about as a positive display into defeat. So, and it's this time of the season. Every point, every decision matters.
See, like, there's been enough decisions for us to be hypercritical officials recently. that one, I'm not going to be hypercritical because I do think it is borderline, verging towards more of a red. So I think they probably got it wrong, but I think there's enough margin for error there that I can understand why VAR didn't overturn it as well, if you know what I mean. That even though the yellow was given, yes, I think it probably should have been overturned, and I think it probably was a red, but there's enough margin for error there that I can understand why they stuck with it as well.
Dangerous challenge. I would have said red all day. But anyway, there you go. Right, so we'll talk about Hearts in a minute in the context of the Celtic game, but just on the race for third then, because I know the last time we spoke, you guys put teams forward. Have you changed your mind? I mean, how do you see it right now, Alan? Who is the big favourite for finishing in that third place?
I'm sticking with Hibs. I know they go to Ibrox. Their next game is at Dundee possibly after that. I'm not sure who they play after that, but I think they can do it. I think they've got momentum. Everybody's pulling in the one direction. I just feel them at this moment in time. And like Michael kind of alluded to as well, with talking about Aberdeen, like it was like back-to-back draws before that, and at times you're not really sure where they're going to land. So I'm sticking with Hibs.
Yeah, Kieran's point there. Yeah, listen, there's loads of good games. All the games seem to matter right now, and that's the good thing.
What a year!
About the split.
What a season it's been. But when you actually think about it, even like the bottom bit, like when we go into like Kilmarnock and Dundee and all these teams that are fighting at the bottom, and then the middle section, I think it's been a brilliant season.
Yeah, and listen, the way Aberdeen started, the form they had under Jimmy Tulane, and the way Rangers are playing, the Jekyll and Hyde nature, which we'll get to. I promise you we'll get to it. Let's talk then Celtic Hearts. Hearts tried obviously something to stay in the contest, Michael, and they had early opportunities, a tinker with the shape and personnel as well. And I see that Neil Critchley's had a fair bit of criticism from the fans, and we'll be saying all the positive things about Celtic in a minute. But just from the Hearts' point of view, because we're talking about this race for Europe, what did you think about the way they set up, Michael, and the approach to the match?
Well, I mean, look, I think it was, the same sort of vein, the discussion I had with St Johnstone. I think that it's the best way to play against Celtic is to push up and try and engage them higher up the park. Of course, there's a massive risk and reward with that, in that if the whole team's not connected and any one person slips in concentration, Celtic will punish it, which they did. But I just think the alternative is that you park the bus or you sit off, and Alan will tell you, that's not an enjoyable way to play football. You don't.
It's just a matter of time before you get beat.
Yeah. So I think the thought process was positive, and this is purely in terms of being more aggressive and trying to engage and press. You can talk about formations and systems. I'm just purely talking about the ability and the thought and the tactic to engage higher up the park. Which
what about having the two kind of attackers and Shanklin playing a deeper role as he has in midfield?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree. So this is now talking about the tactical shape and the setup.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't agree with it. But there is a certain degree of they are hamstrung with the squad that they've got. This season has been such a waste of time in the grand scheme of things for Hearts. There's been massive missed opportunities even within all that, though, when you think about Petrokub, which was shocking. The Moldovan part-timer.
That was a real low moment, wasn't it?
Shocking. Hearts had a chance to get into the knockout stages of the Conference League, and they should have been there, even everything taken into account. But the squad is so imbalanced, and it still is. And it's almost like you're wasting time, waiting to get through the summer to then rectify. So the summer is massive. It is huge. To then see, do they deal with the deficiencies that they have in the squad and actually start to piece together a team that are capable of going in?
Just on that, Michael, we had Neil Critchley on this show. He agreed with you about the imbalance and the recruitment had been done before. And you've got Tony Bloom tie up here in the analytics. So surely that's going to be addressed. If the manager's already saying it needs addressed, why would they not? They've got the resources to do it.
Yeah. But then
that's a positive for this season, isn't it?
But then I would say January. Why was that, not even looked at? Because Steinstender has been a good addition to the squad, right? No doubt about it, right?
That's the boy Steinvender.
Close enough.
Cabangu up top is an addition that, is taking a burden off of Lawrence Shankland, right? But they didn't recruit a single wide player. And Cabangu's got a bit of pace, but there's no pace. There's no athleticism in the middle of the park. So when you're talking about the game at the weekend, for example, right, you know that you're not going to dominate possession. So to hurt the opposition, you need pace and athleticism. Hearts don't have that. They still don't have that. That's something they've not had enough of for a number of years. So you bring in the likes of Khartoum, and this is an important one for me. Khartoum is a nice football player, but this is where I think there's question marks about the recruitment. What is it they were looking for? What was the identikit to bring Khartoum into the squad? Because where is he going to play? What's the identity and what's the end goal about this team? And where does the likes of Khartoum fit into that? Because to me, looking at Khartoum, there's one position and one position only that he could play. And I'm still not sure if he plays there that he's going to bring enough to justify coming into the team. And that is effectively as a number 10.
Right.
But you've already got the likes of Danda, who's never
Does
kicked the ball.
Michael, do you think, is it Neil Critchley, will he have the final decision?
Well, he said that.
It sounded like it when he was on.
Yeah.
I mean, the way players are brought to him isn't always in the classical way. He said often it comes from the analytics first, but he seemed pretty defiant when we asked him the question that he would have the final say.
Can I go back to the point I was making about pace, right? So, see, for the last 6 months, and I can understand the response to that, and the defence would be, oh, we tried, but we didn't get, just raw pace. Just raw pace. Even if you get somebody in half a season on loan, raw pace. Like, I played with Ivan Sproul, for example, right? Now, Ivan was...
He was fast.
Electric.
Remember the hat-trick at Ibrox?
Yeah. Now, but see, Ivan developed into a really good player. But when he first arrived, technically, you didn't know what you were going to get. But even right from the get-go when he arrived, he was a threat because he fitted into a team that knew how to play and knew how to bring his attributes to the fore. Hearts have none of that. They've got none. So you can't utilise the ability to be able to counter-attack on teams. Because
who are you blaming? The analytics here or the...
This is a historic... This is a historic thing that's been that case.
Yeah, but it could have been addressed in January, as you said.
Well, that's my point. Why? So that's why I'm still posing the question of why was it not?
Unless they went after players, as you mentioned, and they didn't get the players they wanted, but they know they can get them in the summer. Look, obviously this is quite new, isn't it? Yeah, I know, but obviously this analytics is quite new. They did bring in a lot of players, and they really miss Jamie McCart at the moment. Michael's favourite 4.5-year contract. They really miss Jamie McCart when he's not playing because he's been excellent at centre half, and you could see the way the team was. Yeah, more defenders, but maybe not all defenders you can rely on. And Harry Milne was in the team. I think it was his debut and looked a bit shaky at times, by the way. Maybe understandable, but certainly looked a wee bit shaky and nervy at times. And Celtic, of course, can exploit you. So just talking about Celtic then, Alan, I mean, Maeda, we've waxed lyrical so many times. Sinisalo, by the way, coming into goal, making an important save early on in the match. I mean, so many good players in the squad. And obviously, if you don't take your chances, Celtic will hurt you.
Yeah, of course. But this is Sinisalo. I always knew he was a good goalkeeper because I've heard good things about him from obviously Aston Villa. But see, this is the thing here. See, when you change the formation and you can't kind of penetrate the aim with pace and stuff, if you give the ball away or whatever, Celtic will find gaps and they'll hurt you. And see, as soon as he gets in front of goal like that, my first thing that comes to mind is goal. I mean, he's finishing has went to another level, I feel, this season. And they probably, see, for me, that's a really good opportunity to maybe get back into the game. But I just felt like Celtic had more gears to go through if they needed, to be quite honest. That was how I looked at it. I thought Hearts were brave in terms of the formation and what they tried to do. The first 50 minutes tried to press. But Celtic are going to pick you off, and that's exactly what they've done. And if they needed a little bit more, I think they could have given it.
Yeah, second half was a very quiet contest, actually, from both sides.
Yeah, it was. But see the first goal? That, to me, is a perfect example of what I'm trying to talk about in terms of, there's two things there for me, right? First of all, you have the collective unit was too spread. So you've got a lot of the front players are trying to press the game, and then you've got the back line who are not close enough up and engaged in it. And then the issue of a lack of athleticism in the middle of the park. Great play from Cal McGregor, because he recognises the team's being pressed and he just steps off the shoulder into the gap. The ball's spun round the corner. But because of the lack of athleticism in the Hearts midfield, and because effectively you're playing with two midfielders and Lawrence Shankland, who's not a midfielder, you've then got a midfield that's too spread out and they don't have the athleticism to be able to cover the ground.
Michael, what do you think about the shape, right? So I'm just thinking, obviously, as an ex-player, and I know they would have had the international break, maybe some people were aware, whatever, but see, to change the shape like that, and you're maybe not used to playing a 3 or a stroke of 5 or whatever, and you're trying to press forward and there's gaps that you can see developing. I think that's quite difficult, especially going to Celtic Park to do it, when you know they can open you up. I know we're talking about being brave, but
and you don't have your best defenders.
Do you think that's wise to do that for that game, or he's just trying something different?
Well, I mean, ultimately, what he was doing there was he had. Well, I mean, we can see they've gone to a back 3 or a back 5. Call it what you want, but the issue that is then caused is you're overloaded in the middle of the park. They were trying to go man for man in the middle of the park. You had Beningame, Devlin, who were effectively on Engels and Hatate. And then you had Lawrence Shankland, who was effectively in and around Cal McGregor.
Yeah.
But the good movement and the intelligence of those players stretching the opposition. And then you had Cal McGregor running off the shoulder. Cammy Devlin's up trying to pressure the front line, or sorry, the defence from Celtic as well. And Benny Beningame just a little bit slow to react and recognise that danger. He needed to fill across into that space. And it's all those little bits that don't happen. But the point remains, and I go back to what I was saying before, if you've got greater legs and athleticism and power in the middle of the park, you've got the ability to be able to play a couple of different ways. And when you have pace up top, you can play in a bit more of a defensive, structure, and you can hit those pacey players. Now, James Wilson's got a wee bit of pace, and Kabanga's got a bit of pace, but they're not lightning quick wide men. As a fullback, what do you?
As a defender, I'm not worried. Like,
yes,
if me personally, and I don't mean skill wise or nothing, I'm talking about purely pace here. If I was playing against him, I wouldn't be going, all right, I'm up against somebody that's really quick today.
Yes.
Where if you're up against maybe Maeda, you're going, right, okay, I need to be on my game, head on a swivel, I need to watch what I'm doing here, go and get tight, be aggressive, whatever. But I understand your point when you talk about Hearts. There's nobody really within that squad at this moment in time that'd be like, oof, he's going to get away from us.
Yeah.
So I understand.
I was watching, I think you're right, Michael. Every time the midfield were turned and were running backwards, the Hearts midfield, it was danger signs all over the pitch. Just a couple of things to pick up on Celtic, because it's another very good win for Celtic and a good way for them to bounce back, clearly. Another step towards the title, which is just round the corner, Alan. But Sinisalo, you mentioned there, and I don't think we've really discussed this, with Schmeichel out injured. So what can you tell the Celtic fans then? Because obviously you've got intel from Villa. Is he a possible number one going forwards then?
I genuinely think so. I think, Kasper Schmeichel's come in and done really well. So at this moment in time, he'll still be the number one. But Sinisalo, I think they were looking at him. I thought there was a few of the fans that were a little bit unhappy with him leaving. Not that he was going to go out and dislodge Martinez, but I think for the future or whatever, or moving forward, there could have been an opportunity for him. So I think he's got all the attributes, good size. I think he's calm with the ball. He makes good saves, as we've seen there. So I think moving forward, and he's only going to get better. See, when he starts to play and he's going week from week, I think that's when you see the real talent and the real player coming through, and he'll grow and evolve. So yeah, I think they've got a real good goalkeeper there.
And just final one, Daizen Maeda. I mean, I know we've said it all about him this season, Michael, and Player of the Year. I think we mentioned this, by the way, about 10 weeks ago. It was almost a shoe-in back then. But 30 goals this season with these games to go, that is a heck of a haul.
Incredible. Alan touched on it there, and I know we've mentioned it on a number of occasions as well. And I think Brendan Rodgers has even alluded to it, is that end product is gone to a different level this season. Whereas previously, playing out in the wide areas, occasionally, it wasn't occasionally, you saw it quite often. He'd get into great areas, slash at it, it would go, into the stand, or he'd never hit the mat, where the target where he was trying to pick out. That doesn't happen very often now. And that goal, the first goal, is a perfect example of that. Running through in goals, great composure, opens his body up, and you were expecting the net to bulge. And it's no surprise when he's doing that so regularly that he's hit the 30 goal mark. And he's a top class player now. Yeah. And a bit of chat of obviously Celtic looking to extend his contract now. He's got another 2 years left on it, and you can understand why.
Michael, it's one of the ones you now. I don't mean you forget about Kyogo. That's kind of maybe the wrong wording, but it's not such a big problem, because maybe we were talking about who's going to play up front. You've got Ida, you've got Maeda. Maeda can play through the middle. Like, you don't really worry. It's not a problem when he's scoring goals like that.
No, and Kyogo is not scoring, by the way, in France, and missing penalties.
I mean, exactly.
It's
a strange one, though.
It's very easy to turn around now and say, I don't really understand it. It's a strange one, but it never really made much sense, did it? To go to Rennes. I sat here in January and said, from Celtic's perspective, they were the winners in this, because they're getting Jota back, and it would give Ida the opportunity to perhaps, stamp his authority, which he's not done. But Maeda's stepped into that void, and they've got Jota back. Come the summer, they can go and recruit like a younger replacement for Kyogo. It's bizarre. You've left Champions League football to go and fight in a relegation battle in France, and now it's got even worse for him because the manager changes. He's not even getting a game.
I know. And then he gets a chance and misses big opportunities at the weekend. Just final one on Hearts, because we've got to move on. Looking tough, isn't it, for third place, Michael? That's for sure. Hibs are 8 points clear. Hearts have got to win these last 2 games before the split, regardless, or else they'll be fighting a different battle. And that'll be a battle in the bottom 6. I'm not saying, obviously, fighting to stay in the top flight, but if they don't make the top 6, that's a disaster. So Dundee United, which is live in Premier Sports this weekend, and then they go to Motherwell before the Scottish Cup semi-final against Aberdeen. Every single game, massive, Michael.
Massive, absolutely monumental. Next weekend at Tynee against Dundee United is a monumental game. It really is, because it's a season-defining game. If they win that, then I know, obviously, depending on other results, but I do think that if they win that, they're pretty much, they're there. I feel they win that game. I think they've secured their top 6 position. Personally, I know it's not mathematical, but I think win that game and they're there. If they don't, then they're really running the risk of not making the top 6, and that's a disaster. Say what you want in terms of, the manager's not had a full season. I get all that, but to miss the top 6, there's long enough to have rectified that. And what makes it doubly worse is, of course, Hibs are really going for third spot. So this is a huge, couple of games before the split. And as you just mentioned, followed up by the Scottish Cup semi-final, which is, these 3 games are unquestionably season-defining. And the sort of the variability and all that is huge. You've got the potential of top 6 Scottish Cup final or bottom 6 and none. It really, you can't.
Which is almost unthinkable, given a team that was going into European football and expecting to progress after a couple of games. Some turnaround. Everyone has to watch St Mirren carefully, though, Alan. Scoring 5 at the weekend. And we've talked about the Hearts fixtures, but St Mirren, they go to Dundee next, then they play Ross County at home. So they'll be looking at 2 games. They'll be thinking, great opportunity to take 6 points. And given they've just battered in 5 against Kilmarnock, which would have been painful for you, I mean, they're in a great place now.
They are. But that's why I said earlier that the season's been so good, because look at all the permutations that we're talking about and all the different clubs and who can end up where. And we've only got 2 before the split. So, their confidence will be sky high after scoring 5 goals. Don't get me wrong, like Kilmarnock, it wasn't a good day at the office for them. But I think
some of the goals are very well taken.
But see, when I was watching it, what it felt to me is it was one of those days, and Michael's probably been there as well, with a team that you just go, everything's going in the back of the net. Whatever we do, it's coming off, and that's what seemed to happen here. defensively, I think Kilmarnock, can you get tight or can you block it? I don't think McCrory done excellent. This for me is not a penalty.
No.
Wait to see what Michael says. But
Honestly,
to lose 2 goals, right, in 9 minutes, and the second one was that, almost putting the game out of reach, kind of, at that moment in time, that is so soft.
agreed.
And I think it was a running theme for Kilmarnock defensively. I thought they struggled, but fair play to St Mirren. Like that, you could have lashed that anywhere, but it's Cam taking his time and he puts in there defensively. You have to do better. You have to stop it coming in the box. I mean, come on. Derek McInnes will be looking at this and thinking, how are all these ended up getting in? But from a St Mirren point of view, perfect day.
Listen, brilliant from St Mirren, Michael, who had a slow start to the season, remember, but they're well placed now.
Yeah, they are. They are. And you're right to point out, obviously, the fixtures that are coming up. They'll be feeling pretty confident that they can, get themselves into the top 6 for the 3rd year in a row here. Mm-hmm. So, but Alan's spot on. It's one of those games that everything St Mirren did, and the momentum just continued to build and snowball there. But the first 2 goals are the key to that. Scoring very early. I thought McCrory was going to be a really good addition for Kilmarnock, but he's not looked commanding. He's not taken control of that jersey and went, right, I'm your man. And it just looks like there's an apprehension in his performance. Like the first goal, yes, it's in the corner, but there's no great power. You're thinking, you've got to save that. Get down, And 100% agree with that.
A couple of them just didn't quite look right, did they?
No, they didn't. Not that I think, it's not ones that you berate the keeper with, but you're looking at them, like Alan just said, and Dell will be looking, going, how are they all ending up in the net?
Little things, Michael. So see, even that goal that you're talking about, McCrory, I think he needs to do better, but I think it was Polworth. I think he goes, but it's a kind of half-hearted effort to go out. All right, I'm going to try and kind of block it off. You need to be going out there with everything, blocking it, getting in front of something, bodies on the line. See, if you do that, the way they goals, a lot of them kind of trundled in. Yes, they were good into the corners and stuff, but I just feel there was a lot of opportunity from a Kilmarnock's point of view to stop it at source.
Absolutely. And by the way, the penalty kick, I couldn't agree more.
It's terrible,
it's
man.
Not a penalty.
So
I think it was windy up there, right enough. Was it maybe the wind that kind of caught him? I don't know what it was.
That's a perfect example of what you would class, and I've heard folk using this now as a football contact or not. Like it's 2 players come together. Yes, there's contact. It's not a foul though. No. Never a penalty kick.
No, I fully agreed with that. Just on Kilmarnock, Al, because I know you're local and everything else, and you'll hear what the fans are saying. And I was reading some negativity from some of the fans, but actually some real anger directed at the team, some of the players, and the manager as well. Derek McInnes is seemingly hearing a bit. Is it fair criticism?
Well, I'll not tell you exactly what my brother-in-law Robbie has been saying, because I don't think
we should get Robbie on.
Oh God, man, that would be hilarious. I'd love that. But no, it is a worry. Like, don't get me wrong, the recent form, and I go all the way back to like the European campaign, which was amazing for them. And Derek said that he put all his eggs in the basket for that, and he thought he had enough within the squad and his team to make up the points later on. I just think at this moment they're so inconsistent. Like round about Christmas time, we've seen a couple of decent performances. I think it was the Aberdeen one, but it's been so up and down. You genuinely don't know what you're going to get, and to concede 5 goals in the manner that they did, it's a worry. They're 1 point in front of Dundee. Yeah. That's a huge worry for me moving forward for them.
Yeah, and that could have been so different at the weekend. Dundee, they'll still be thinking, Tony Docherty will be thinking, after beating Dundee United, how have they not taken at least something against Rangers? Alan, make this make sense. Right. Make sense, Rangers at the moment. What on earth?
Honestly, Daryl, I really struggle. You genuinely, I don't know if it's just the away from home thing or what, but
that was meant to be put to bed.
Of this. Yeah, I know, but it always look, first and foremost, this is the 3rd time now that they've given teams 2 goals of a head start. Like, you can't do that. Like, you genuinely can't. But I think it's well watching it. Fair play to Dundee. See the way they started the game? That was the way they started against Dundee United. And I thought they were excellent. And it was so open at times. Like, Barry, I mean, that's a great finish. But I think, again, from a defending point of view, can Tav get round? Can he try and get a head on it? Can he be a little bit stronger? Butland at this moment in time, look,
He's got this in him, doesn't he, at the moment?
Since the injury, remember when he was out, the kind of leg injury, he's not quite been the same, I don't think. Look,
well,
he'll
listen,
know
he made a
that he's
few
made a
last
mistake
season.
there.
You think the punch at Old Trafford when he just came back.
Yep.
You're right. There's been a few. Motherwell recently, I think another one we talked about. There's been a few questionable moments. Among them,
this
also,
was a big moment.
Fenerbahce, where he was decisive in that tie, so he played well. But anyway, let's get back to this one.
I think that was a big moment for Rangers at that moment in time, because they go into the break and it's 2-1. Here, there was so many big opportunities, by the way, for both teams.
We couldn't pick them all. That's the thing.
Exactly,
but goal, but he had 2 or 3 chances prior to that.
He had more than 2 or 3, but again, he keeps putting himself front and centre. He gets up and he gets on with it for the next one. But I think Dundee caused a lot of problems with the front 3, which made Barry change to a back 4. Like, he spotted the problem and he changed. But I thought when it went up 3-1, I thought that was it, game over. But that's where I think Barry talks about the character of the players, and we have seen it a lot. Look, great strike for Tav. We know he's more than capable of that. Lawrence has a really good effort as well. And eventually Dessers comes up with the winner. But for me, they got away with that there. Like, yes, brilliant, 3 points, well done, fighting spirit, came back. Oh, that's it, amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. But when you look at the bigger picture, it's not good enough. I mean, 2-0 down, 3-1 down. Dundee really should have put it to bed. But they give Rangers an opportunity and they fight to the end and they get the winner. But you can't keep doing this. Like, you can't. And that's just where Rangers are at this moment in time. I'm not sure what I'm going to see game to game. Michael, stop laughing.
And Dessers as well, Michael. I mean, it's a great finish in the end, and he does deserve a bit of credit because he keeps going. But there's a lot of other strikers who wouldn't be celebrating too much at the end if they'd missed 6-7 opportunities. Did he have 12 shots on goal, by the way, in the game?
12, aye.
I know you celebrate the win, okay, I know.
12,
you know what I mean, though. But my word, Michael, he missed a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, he did. I mean, first of all, from Dundee's perspective, right? As I always say, they continued where they left off against Dundee United. And, blistering start, get themselves 2 goals in front. And you're thinking to yourself, they're on the up here. They're on the up. My concern for them now is that's such a bitter pill to swallow. You're running out of games, and as much as you look at them, and we said this, last game against Dundee United, that's a side that should be challenging for the top 6.
Yeah.
Not looking at the relegation playoff spot. But how does that psychologically affect them? Because that's a sore one. They should have got something from the game. Credit to Rangers, they've found a way to win another game of football. And I know what Al's saying, and I agree with everything. I think everybody recognises that they can't keep giving opposition 2 goals of a head start. But you've got to give them credit in terms of finding a way to get themselves back into the game and getting 3 points. And a lot of it is the mentality that clearly the manager and his sort of staff are having to constantly hammer into them. I know there's technical, tactical wee tweaks here and there that have certainly helped along the way as well. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway is that psychologically, that coaching staff are having to be right on top of that team constantly, because it's almost like their default is to just slip away.
Yeah.
And slipping away is what ends up being, when I say slipping away, I'm talking about the intensity of their game. When the intensity is not there, they get punished and they're having to play catch up. And that's the biggest thing. It comes back to recruitment again. I've said it umpteen times. Rangers have got too many players that don't have that natural level of aggression and intensity in their game. You look at the Oscar Cortez, for example. When you look at this in the summer, Rangers are obliged to pay $3.5 million of a transfer fee for him. I think anybody that watched Cortez, first game of the season at Tynecastle, said this before, he came off half-time. And you're looking and going, I'm not sure there's a great deal wrong with him, And I'm not saying that he's chucked an injury.
He's obviously had some big injury issues, but yes.
I know, but there's an element of that desire, hunger, and tenacity. And I'm not just picking on him, but he's an example of someone.
You're right. There's a few you can pick out
who has been recruited. They've got an obligation to pay $3.5 million for him, and you're going, is he the type of player that you're looking for and needing? And he's not.
Well, Alan, can you imagine? Obviously, maybe different ownership by then, so plans might change. But can you imagine if that kind of money actually determines whether or not they can spend $5.5 million to get Journey, for instance?
Exactly. I mean, I think the way Tierney's playing at this moment in time, I think, depending on the owners and everything, how much they've got to spend and what areas they need to strengthen, they might get priced out for him. I think he's just had one of those
5.5
seasons.
apparently is the option, right? Is that if that's true, what we've read?
Exactly, if it's true.
By all accounts, they obviously need to do it by a certain point.
Yes.
Otherwise, it becomes open market.
But if his value's soaring, if this is all true and you could sell him for more, it's not a no-brainer to buy and sell on if you need to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's what I would do.
Absolutely. I suppose it's all dependent on, can they get the deal done quick enough to get that obligation or that option done? But I also take your point, Daryl. Even before that deal gets done, you do it. When I say the deal, I'm talking about the ownership. You do it in terms of sign them, and then look, we've got the deal done. Now we can decide what we're going to do. Do we need to sell them on and make a profit and then reinvest it, or we've got a cracking player on our hands? Because clearly,
it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Tierney's been outstanding
in the summer. I don't just mean the Tierney situation. I mean in general, but what they do, because they need leaders, I think, in there as well. Experienced players that are leaders that can drive the team forward. And you have to pay money for people like that. So it'll be really interesting for me. Of course, the managerial situation. I mean, we'll see what direction that goes in first. But the recruitment is absolutely massive.
Yeah,
Barry getting the job, Hutz?
Well, look, he's in charge of it at this moment in time. So what can you do when you're in charge? You do the best that you possibly can.
That sounds like a staff member answer.
Maybe he's about to join the coaching team.
Maybe.
Oh no! I enjoy working with you way too much.
Oh, come on!
Way too much.
Come on, listen. You'll go where the money is. Let's be honest here, right? If they pay
don't
more,
say that. Don't say that live.
I know. I'm just kidding.
He'll only go if he doesn't have to go to Dingwall. Is that?
I know. Or he'll fly. He'll get the team plane to fly back from Dingwall. Oh, sure. By the way, I saw a bit of Athletic Club recently. Bilbao on the horizon, obviously, for Rangers. If they start like they did against Dundee, it's curtains. Because with Nico Williams and others in that team, they are a step up, by the way, from what I've seen. Anyway, listen, Al, we'll talk about that next week and beyond, because obviously there's another week before we get to that game. Just final one for you, Al. I know Michael's mentioned this game, but Hearts Dundee United live Sunday, 2 p.m. Premier Sports. What an encounter. Can't
wait. Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, we've seen Dundee United a lot this season. I think there's so much that's hinging on it, and I like going to Tynecastle. I think the atmosphere's brilliant. So it'll just be building up because there's so much at stake. Two teams that are desperate for 3 points. I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait. As you know, I like going through to Edinburgh.
You do, and Michael will show you the best way out as well at the Gorgie.
He's got a wee night out afterwards. That's why.
Tremendous.
The wife's coming through, so we'll make a wee night of it.
Listen, just after the show, I'll give you Michael's address just so you know the area to avoid. Okay, later on.
No signal round there anyway.
What's that?
No signal round there anyway.
Oh, I know. Still got some phasing issues. Unreal. Anyway, we're out of time. Guys, thank you very much. We're back next Monday in the Social Club. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.